I'm sure my insurance will go down, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
They'll be so glad I didn't make a claim.
The condo assessment will come around, you'll have to pay anyway, right?
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah,
There's just a better chance now they won't drop you.
exactly, yeah. They'll still raise it on me though, but oh well.
For sure. Good morning. What are you laughing about back there?
Tania has a story she wants to share, apparently. We're gonna start treating this like grade school. If you can't share it with everybody.
Tania changed her hair more than I changed my other. It just got raised last weekend. Oh, no,
That's
they're
weird.
on.
I didn't even see them.
Oh, because you weren't here for one day, they're gone. I don't know. It lasted a while.
Okay, who else has something good this weekend?
Lots of silence.
All right, Lucinda needs the box.
Hi, this is Lucinda, and I know this is like common for many of you, but for me, it was really exciting. I had a buyer I've been looking at a couple houses for, and we found one this weekend and wrapped it up in like a day, which has been like unheard of for me. So anyway, yay, and now we get to list your house, which is super exciting too. So that's something good.
Awesome. It is fun to win once in a while, isn't it?
Right?
Oh no, Trisha moved into her house this weekend.
Ooh. I'm ready for pictures.
I am impressed that you're on the call, because that's if I move for the weekend, that's pretty much grounds to have a week off, I think.
I'm at our old house working because it's still chaos at our house.
I understand. Oh, I'll be working today, honey. See ya.
Yeah, you unpack some boxes. Oh, that's fun though.
I've got two good things.
Go.
First one is if anyone's not using Kelsey as their TC coordinator, they are missing the boat. I had a photo shoot Friday. My photographer didn't give me the photos until late in the afternoon. I went ahead and forwarded them to Kelsey. So she would have them first thing this morning. And what did she do? She took time out of her day, Saturday, to upload those, to go live. So she's the best. If you're not using her, then good luck. Second thing is, I get to go home this weekend. Home is Colorado. Sunday, I'll be sitting in Empower Stadium watching the Broncos defeat the Raiders. And then I'm going to spend a couple days with my buddies, high school buddies. One of them is retiring from the Denver Police Department, and we're going to spend a couple days in Breckenridge and Aspen, Colorado.
That's fun.
That is super fun.
Can't even blow your knee out this time of year.
Yeah.
Sure you can.
Oh yeah, you
Yeah. Krieger's like challenge accepted. Anybody else? Everybody's just excited to get to our big presentation.
So for what it's worth, Megan and I showed up this morning and look, right, I mean, what we always do, you share your war stories for the weekend, and not war stories, they were both good stories, but after a holiday that falls on a Monday, everybody lands just a little bit exhausted and whatever. And so to be fair, we're like, well, nobody's even gonna be on the call. The office was so slow this morning at 8 o'clock. There's nobody here ever, anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So we were like, uh-oh, this is gonna be one of those days, but I'm way impressed. We've got about 35 people on the call, way more. It's about twice as many as I anticipated. So
Yeah. Well done, guys. Way to
here's
prove us wrong.
here's to the professionals.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to talk a little bit today about kind of an extension of what we talked about last week. So last week, if you were on the call, we talked about how we communicate with our database and what kind of conversations we have to have in this market versus maybe what some of us are used to. The last few years, there are, if you remember from last week, 80% of agents within NAR have not experienced a shifting market. So the way we talk to our clients, to our database, the way we prospect, that all changes as the market changes. So we talked about that last week. And so we wanted this week to jump in a little bit to, we're gonna get into this way more in depth in Business Planning Clinic in October. So we'll have a date for you on that probably by next week. We need to nail that down. But we always do Business Planning Clinic in October. So we go into the 4 models of the MREA in Business Planning Clinic in depth. So we're going to kind of assume for today you have an idea of those models. You took a breath. And we're gonna just talk about one. So we're not going into all four. But we're gonna talk about the lead generation model. Does anybody know what the lead generation model is? Oh, good.
Yeah, nobody knows. That's why we're not generating any leads. That's not entirely true, but to be fair, right? One of the reasons that we have or started talking about having this conversation even ahead of business planning clinic is because we're starting to feel slow. And maybe you would argue with me and go, no, I'm not slow. But statistically, if we watch the numbers of the market center and we watch overall, we're starting to feel slow.
Right.
Some of that's seasonal. And you might argue, hey, it's back to school and everything's gonna pick up in September. I hope you're right. I also want to be very intentional about the activities that we engage in the month of September, so that in October, we're not sitting around going, oops, right, we missed that.
And a lot of us go off of I'm slow because I feel slow. I'm busy because I feel busy. We go over the lore every month for a reason, because we look at what the numbers tell us to take us out of emotion and put us more into fact and logic. So a lot of us don't do that every month, which is okay, maybe. And so if you're not tracking your numbers every month, you don't know maybe what this September looks like versus last September. And so assuming that maybe everybody doesn't keep track of the numbers quite like Adam does, we wanted to give you a tool today that will prepare you for business planning clinic. We get to business planning clinic in October and everybody goes, oh my gosh, it's so much in one day. And we do it in October so that you have all of fourth quarter to get your goals in order. But still, it feels like a lot of math. It feels like a lot of planning. So if you don't feel as busy as you should or want to be, or you're busy, but you don't really know if you're busy enough to carry you through the end of the year, we're going to use the lead generation model today to answer the question. Remember, we talked about communication last week. So we're going to answer the question, do we have enough people in our database to talk to hit our goals? Or do we need to add more people to our database to hit our goals? If there's a gap in your business, it's one of two things. We either don't have enough people to communicate with, or we're not communicating with the people that we have. And if you don't know which one your gap is, it's really hard to solve that problem. And the lead generation model tells us just that. So hopefully you all have some idea of what your goal was this year. Maybe you don't know your progress to your goal right now. That's okay. But hopefully you all have a goal. Do you want to give like a 5-minute rundown of the economic model just to
Yeah,
help them if they didn't, if
yeah,
they
this
don't, if
is
they've never seen this? We have a
this is a
couple.
little bit of a tricky formula, and I don't want that to scare you. It gets super easy because we can send it out actually in a like a Google Doc and a spreadsheet where all you have to do is plug in 2 or 3 numbers and the rest of it populates for you. But the way that goals work in the economic model is really starting with the end in mind. It's starting with net income. And I love that Megan says, hey, look at your goals for the year. But the truth is, most of us have probably lost our goals for the year already. And have lost them far enough that we've just kind of abandoned them. I would argue that setting a fourth quarter goal is as good as trying to go back and say, here's what we did, right? So if you started with September, October, November, December, what do you want your net income to look like in the next 4 months? I think that's a good way to start. Anyway, net income. Net income is your income after your expenses. So you're going to start with your net. You're going to add in your operating expenses. Now, obviously, everybody has a budget that they're operating off of, right? You know exactly what your operating expenses, you know how much you're paying Zillow, you know how much you're paying your admin, you know how much all of your overhead, how much fuel you're spending, your phone bill. Everybody knows all that stuff. So all you have to do is add in that number. Super easy.
Yes,
These TVs are up.
it's almost as if I intentionally did that.
Oh.
So you can all move up.
Adam
Adam turned only half the TVs on in the room so that everybody would have to move up,
But they don't care.
but they decided they don't care.
All right.
Operating expenses. If you don't have a budget that you look at every month, The easiest way to go grab your operating expenses is to look at your business checking account and all the places that you spent money over the last couple of months. If you don't have a business checking account and you use the same credit card for your board dues as you do your grocery order for the week, you need to go separate those. That's your homework for today. Assuming you all have those separate and you run a business account, all you have to do is go back and look at all of your transactions for the last 60 days and see where you're spending your money, and that's going to give you your operating expenses.
Yep. Then we need to add back our cost of sale, because remember, every time you sell a house, well, at least until you're capped, you're gonna owe company dollar, you're gonna owe royalty. There are some expenses that come out of the sale when you have a sale. And they don't get triggered until you have a sale, right? That's cost of sales. And so we want to add those back, and gives us our GCI goal. And that's the GCI goal that we all get to look at and go, oh, hey, right, I need to make $100,000 in GCI over the next 4 months in order to make myself full. From there, we can extrapolate that GCI goal, how much income do I need, into how much volume is that, and how many units do I need. Those are the two key pieces, is how many units specifically do I need to generate.
One of the things the economic model is really good for is changing the way we think about our business goals. A lot of agents fall into the trap of, I want to sell 30 houses and 5 million this year. But you don't really have a metric of what you want to show in your bank account at the end of the year. So the economic model really teaches us to track net income instead of tracking units and volume. So if you're an agent that's always tracked units and volume, I want to sell this many houses, I want to close this much volume, I want to be top 10 in the board, I want to be whatever. I challenge you to shift away from that this year. You could track that too if that's important to you. But what happens is, if you're only tracking your units and your volume, there is no eye on your expenses or your cost of sale. So some agents fall into the trap of, well, I hit my unit and volume goal. I sold 10 million this year and my bank account's at 0. Then we probably have an expense issue. So I challenge each of you, if you maybe have gone through the last year or last 10 years or however long tracking units and volume, that this is the year we shift to profit, net income instead.
These are the key numbers that you need, right? So we can go through the buy side and the sell side, but the reality is, we're trying to boil this down into how many conversations do I need to have in order to create X number of units, in order to create X number of net income. That's the bottom line. How many leads? And we can split those into buyers and sellers, right? So in a 50-50 model, right? So our general goal is to try to get 50% sellers and 50% buyers. That may or may not be your business goal. That's fine. But we do need to figure out how many buyers do you want, how many sellers do you want.
So out of the economic model, you're going to get, and if you have never done this, if you are seeing this for the first time, I know some of you are seeing this for the first time, or you've just never gotten through it, I would be happy to sit down with you one-on-one and go through the economic model in more detail with you so that you know your numbers. We don't have time to really go through a full example of this. We will in October, so please make sure Business Planning Clinic is a priority. But to get through today, we're going to assume that you understand how to work through this and you can get to a total units sold number that gets you to your profit goal that you wanted. So after we go through the economic model, the next thing to go through is the lead generation model. So the lead generation model tells us how many people we need to be talking to in our database on a consistent basis to turn out the number of units in our goal. So in the MREA, they took all of these top agents and put all their databases together and figured out of all the people in their database, what percentage of them were leading to transactions every year. And they determined that 6% of their database will transact that year. 3% will be the actual people in their database, and 3% will be referrals from the people in their database. So as you look at your database, and if you don't have a database, the closest thing you have to a database is the number of contacts in your phone. So if you go through and you look at the number of people in your database and multiply that by 0.06, that's how many transactions you should close this year. As easy as that. If you're short of that, then you need to be communicating with those people more often. We're going to talk about that. If your database is turning out 6%, if you look at it and go, okay, I have enough people in my database and I've closed this many units this year, you may just need to meet more people. Because we know, I think the Peters, if you remember, Leslie and Andy Peters, we've had them come talk to us a couple times. They are just database wizards. They communicate with their database better than probably most teams I've seen at any of our conferences. And they average right around 8%. So know that it's really hard to get much over 8%. You just have to start talking to more people. So if you look at this, this is a sheet that we will do together in October, but it's something to kind of give you food for thought right now. So you're going to look at how many contacts you need in your database to achieve the goal from your economic model.
So basically what we're gonna do is take those number of leads and divide it by 6%, right? And that's gonna give us the number of contacts you needed, right? We didn't even have an example of it, but generally speaking, you're gonna come up with far more contacts needed in order to achieve your goal than you actually have.
So let's say you wanted to have 2 closings every month. You want to close 24 units this year. If you take 24 and you divide it by 0.06, you'll get 400. You need 400 people in your database. That's 400 people that would answer the phone if you called them. That's not people that you just took the HOA roster in your subdivision and threw them all into a database and they don't know who you are. It's not just your kid's little league team and those parents have no idea who you are. These are people that know you. And so it may seem like 400 people is a lot, but keep in mind when I think that the biggest mistake agents make when they are setting up a database is they go by households, not by people. So think about BJ and Jennifer. Jennifer works at Country. There are people that Jennifer interacts with every day at work that BJ doesn't know, doesn't talk to, don't show up on his radar at all. So if BJ is in your database and you're communicating very systematically with BJ and you're not communicating at all with Jennifer, Jennifer goes to work that day and somebody says, oh, I'm going to put my house on the market. She's like, oh, cool. Want to go out to lunch? Is your work done? Like she's not even going to think to recommend you as an agent because you're not communicating with her. So we look at it and we go, yeah, but their friend put a sign in the yard. They didn't use me, but you've only been communicating with one person in the household. So one of the best things that you can do to increase this number of people is go back through the contacts you have in your database and make sure you have 2 email addresses for both of the people, both of the adults that live in that house. That's the fastest way, I think, to get more people in your database and turn out more leads, because we often just forget about half of the household, especially if they're a past client of yours and for some reason you didn't put both email addresses in your database. You can probably go grab them from Dotloop. When I look at the health scores of people in our database, that is one of the biggest things we're missing is people's email addresses, because you probably had them in Dotloop, but it's not a required field in opportunities. So you don't have to put in an email address for both people and opportunities to get paid. So we just put in the minimum amount of information to get our check and just move on. So it may just be a matter of going back in your past clients and go grab in Dotloop or DocuSign, go grab their email addresses and set them up on something like a neighborhood nurture to just start communicating with them again. So you're going to look at how many contacts you have in your database today. We talked about your phone contact list is a great place to start. You're very limited on how much you can communicate with them, obviously, through your phone contacts. I know everybody gets sick of hearing command, command, command. But if there's one thing that you do this fall while you're feeling slow, get those names into command and set them up on a neighborhood nurture. The neighborhood nurture is an email that goes out once every 2 weeks or once a month that gives them information about what's selling in their neighborhood. So if you haven't done that yet, that is one of the best things that you can do to just start dripping on people without them being like, oh, why am I suddenly getting all this communication? I want to switch. Um. Sorry, I was scrolling before we. Okay, this is what I wanted. Okay, when we talked about communication last week, we talked about all different kinds of communication. So I want to take that and switch it into, as you start communicating with these people that you put in your database. Are we prospecting or are we marketing? Can anybody tell me the difference between prospecting and marketing? I'm gonna sit in silence for a second.
Uh-huh, everybody does. It's a scary question.
Prospecting is somebody that you're working.
Can you toss me the box, Krieger?
I don't know.
Prospecting is somebody that you are communicating with, so like in your database, in your sphere. And marketing is like posting stuff on social media or billboard or whatever you do to market,
Yep.
in my opinion.
I agree with you. Marketing is generally very broad-based,
Mhm.
right?
Marketing is typically more expensive.
Mhm.
It's more hands-off, so you have to pay to get in front of people because you're not really face-to-face or voice-to-voice or whatever communicating with them. So marketing is typically more passive and more money intensive
And slower.
and slower, right? So a lot of us sit back when we get slow, we want to beef up. I'm going to post on social media. I'm going to do videos. I'm going to run ads. I'm going to buy a billboard. Please don't buy a billboard. I'm going to put my name on a park bench, whatever you want to do. And then sit back and wait for leads to start coming in. Prospecting is much different. Prospecting is more relational. It's more time intensive. It's going out and looking for the lead, not putting your name out and waiting for the lead to come to you. Prospecting has more of an immediate response because you're going out looking for it. So the communication we want to focus on right now, excuse me, is prospecting. We all do a fairly good job, I think, of marketing. I scroll my social media and see posts all over the place. And I know you guys have done a lot with sponsorships and getting involved in the community and things like that. That is all great marketing. And I'm not saying don't do that. In a hard market, what we want to double down on is prospecting. I mean, you want to do it in a good market, but I love this paper, and we don't spend a ton of time on it other than in Business Planning Clinic, but everybody I talk to when they get slow, everybody says the same thing. I don't know where to go get leads. I don't know who to talk to. What do you want me to say? Where am I finding these people? If we're starting with our phone contact list, starting with our database, these are all things that we can do to add more names to this list, to our database. So we're going on the assumption that you don't have enough names. If your problem is that you're just not communicating with people that you already have, your solution there is just get into Command, and you can do newsletters, you can do neighborhood nurtures, you can start emailing out industry update videos. There is just a plethora of things you can do if you have the names. I really want to focus on the problem or the gap of I don't have enough names in my database. I need to go get more. So if we go through some of these ideas, FSBOs and expireds. I think I saw Ryan Tucker on this call. He is gifted at FSBOs and expireds. I think he is fueled by people hanging up on him or telling him no. Gets it out of his way, and then he just gets to go on and find the appointment and check it off his list for the day. Ryan is probably an anomaly. Most people are very scared of getting on the phone and talking to for sale by owners or expired. But as the market changes, there's going to be a lot more opportunity. For sale by owners have had it pretty easy the last few years. They've been able to put a sign in their yard and probably have pretty good success. As the market changes and houses start sitting a little bit longer, as inventory increases, for sale by owners are going to be a lot more challenging. We haven't seen a whole lot of expireds. Expireds will start coming back. Circle prospecting. Do you want to talk through circle prospecting?
Yeah, so pick your neighborhood, right? So I think it's best probably to focus on a single neighborhood and start farming that specifically with circle prospecting. But circle prospecting is around activity that's already there. So recently sold listing is, for example, you can send a postcard out that says, did you know this just sold in your neighborhood? Here's what it sold for. Have you wondered what your house would sell for? Better than sending a postcard would be, knocking on the door and saying, hey, this house just sold next door to you. You don't have to be the one that sold the house, by the way. Right? I don't know that people necessarily care. You have to be the one that's bringing the relevant information. Or the same goes for recently listing. Right? The script goes something along the lines of, hey, this house just got listed. And generally speaking, there are 2 other houses that are going to be listed within 30 days, right? Is yours one of them? Right? So anyway, that's circle prospecting. Anybody doing that? I don't know anybody in this office that's really done. Have you done some of it?
We do it around, so when I see something that's sold and I have sold a house in that neighborhood,
Yep.
my past client, I'll call my past client.
Yep.
And do that.
Sure.
On a regular basis. It works.
It does. The next one, community outreach. One more thing about circle prospecting. I've had so many people ask about the call that Christina Griffin did, fourth quarter of last year. She uses a website to do, it's really more farming. Sometimes we get farming and circle prospecting is using recent listings and sold properties to generate excitement and business around that property. Farming is just taking a neighborhood and kind of inundating them with value and information and trying to become the agent of that neighborhood or that niche, whatever it is. Christina Griffin does a lot of farming in neighborhoods based on things that are going into foreclosure or short sale, recent divorces, people with a ton of equity. She uses public record to find niches and communicate with the people in those niches. So circle prospecting and farming sometimes get switched around, but if you are interested in learning more about farming, go back and watch that recording's on our YouTube channel. But I don't know why I've had a couple people ask me about that the last few weeks.
Megan?
Can I add in something real quick?
Yeah, go.
Yeah, have at it.
So we do quite a bit of circle prospecting and well, we did quite a bit before, but one of the things that I do like to do is if a home goes pending, I will find in the neighborhood very similar homes and call that person. You can find their numbers through a few different pieces of software, but it's a pretty easy script. I just let them know that a very similar house just sold in the neighborhood and they have exactly, or very similar to what buyers are looking for. We know X amount of other buyers went through that property, curious to see if they're interested in the value of their houses. It's a low, return, but if you're not doing anything and you don't have for sale by owners or expireds to call, it's just an easy conversation. And the reason I do like it is if you're not one that likes to get hung up on or cussed at, I don't mind that. But if you don't like those situations, you call these people, they're not getting called. So they're not already on the defensive because, 5 or 6 other agents that called them, nobody's called them. It's a very, very easy conversation to have. And then also you can farm around. We did this and we've had some pretty good luck. We find people that have homes that say all the bedrooms are on the upper level and they've been in that house for say 20 years, 25 years. If they've been in that house for say roughly 20 years, let's just say that, what do we know about that person? That person's probably older. No offense to any of us older people, but they're probably older and they're getting tired of going upstairs to their master bedroom, right? And you'd be surprised who's on the fence, who's thought about selling their house or curious about the value of their house. Are you going to go and list their house and put it on the market tomorrow? Absolutely not. Is it going to go in your database and you're going to have touches for maybe the next 6 months, maybe the next year? I have, in fact, listed a house that I've stayed in contact with for 2 years, waiting for them to retire. And those are the conversations that you have and what comes out of having those conversations. That's it.
Thanks, Ryan.
You hear that. Just the intentionality behind all of that though, right? I mean, and part of me goes, man, do I want to work that hard? Remember, in the last 24 months, 36 months, none of us have had to work that hard, right? So there is something now to getting back into this conversation that says, what does the hard work of a real estate agent look like? And that's what it looks like. And sometimes he's right. Sometimes it takes 2 years, right? And at some point, that's our job.
Right.
I will add this too, for sale by owners are getting tired. I just listed 2 last week actually, and just called them right time. They're basically, when I called them, they just said, hey, I'm tired of even showing the house. One was, I live 45 minutes away. I can't keep doing this. So I just went and listed it. Another one was a withdrawing listing. We can call the withdrawing listings. I called the withdrawal listing because I actually had a buyer for it. So this is yesterday. I listed it and put the buyer in it yesterday.
Wow.
And
Nice.
so I know some people don't like the dual agent, but I dual agent. So that home came off the market. It was expired. I had the buyer for it. Hey, I'm going to marry a buyer to your house. It's just
That's
the way
great.
it is.
That's awesome.
Call them.
Yep. Stacey, did you have something on Dad?
I was actually gonna say the exact same thing. Also, though, there is a top agent here in town. As we all do, watch other businesses, and you can tell when she sells something, something else pops up in that neighborhood. And I'm always like, how's she doing it? And that's exactly what she is doing, or their team's doing. And so it never fails when they list one in the neighborhood, another one. So I think if you do reach out to the neighbors, they might not be ready, but they might know someone in the neighborhood. That's where I always find it. They go, oh, well, so-and-so 2 streets over is looking to put their house.
And you really do have to ask, right? Because I think we get guilty of just letting the transaction go through and never asking for, hey, who do you know?
Yeah. The next one on here is community outreach. A fair amount of you are involved in some kind of charity or volunteer work. I think the awesome thing about a lot of charity and volunteer work is a lot of people are there for the same thing. It's 2 parts. They want to give back to the community and they want to meet people. So people are usually willing to talk and interact, and they're not usually going and volunteering and just putting their head down and not talking to anybody. Where I think especially newer agents fall into the trap of like, I need to get involved in a BNI group or Rotary or something that costs money. I wouldn't recommend getting into those because I think they get really saturated. But just some kind of, Emily Burrow gets super involved in fostering animals and in different nonprofits for animal rescues. I mean, she wrote a whole book about it if you guys would like to read it. But Emily does a great job of bringing her charity work and her real estate business together. So there's a ton of opportunity if that's just something that is in her heart that she's going to do, whether she sells real estate or not. She just does a really good job. Just like you heard Ryan's intentionality behind the things that he's good at, Emily has used something that she's good at and something she's passionate about and brought real estate into that. So maybe this is something that speaks to you. Maybe it's not. You certainly don't have to go through all of these things on your list, but maybe there's something you're already doing that you just need to tweak a little bit to start generating leads from. Key relationships. These are something that I think we just kind of skip over until we need them. Key relationships, corporations, builders, banks, third-party data companies, investors. I think this is a pretty short list. But those key relationships that you have could just be somebody that sends you referrals. It could just be somebody that pours into your business, that supports you really well, that maybe you don't acknowledge enough. It could be somebody that you are really close to, that's very well connected with people in the community that you just never remind them that you're in real estate or ask them if they know of anybody that wants to buy or sell.
And when I think of even like corporations, right? What have we gotten away from in the last couple of years? This relocation stuff has just changed. I don't deal as much with WHR. Maybe it's Paragon that you're going, oh, I don't want to give their 40% referral fee anyway. I get all of that. And as the market changes, those are key relationships that help keep our business going and generate business around them. So don't discount it, right? It might be time to get back with that relocation company and re-energize that relationship. Builders is the one that absolutely amazes me. In fact, I very few realtors ever call me with clients, right? Most of the time we're out there, builders are out there finding their own stuff. As the market slows, you may notice some builders out there with some inventory. Brave Homes ran a full page ad over the weekend, right? I don't know if you saw that in the Pentagraph over the weekend, but that's a sign, right? That's a, hey, if builders are running full page ads, somebody's got some inventory out there. It's just a question of whether or not you want to be the one that entertains it. Banks banks have a couple of different opportunities for us. Did you know that people will call their bank before they'll call a realtor? Right? So if you have that relationship with the lender, maybe they will call you and go, hey, I just heard from so-and-so over the weekend. They're looking for a house. I gave them your name. Are you that referral? But the other side of this is in foreclosures. Right? Did you know that banks know of people that are going to foreclose on their house before they're actually foreclosed? And they may call you and say, hey, would you help this person out? It's just a matter of having those relationships. So again, don't discount all of these things. They're out there. Obviously, third-party data companies and investors, they're same.
Mhm.
You gotta pick your path and go at it.
And if you're using one lender, very consistently, and they don't ever send you any leads, if you send them every single lead you have and they don't ever send you a lead, I would probably have a conversation with them. We all get scared to have any conversation with, especially lenders, but they know a lot of agents, but you guys know a lot of lenders. So if you're using one lender very consistently and they don't ever send you business, I would either reevaluate that relationship or at least have a conversation with them, because it may be time to find a new key relationship, or you just decide that you're okay that that's a one-sided relationship. Teaching and speaking opportunities. I think one of the gifts we got from COVID is this opportunity is absolutely endless. If you look at any top agent on social media, they have found some niche outside of just production. This is an example of how you use your real estate license to generate income doing other things and to just build an audience. I can't imagine the referral business that take Amy. Tell me, Amy. Okay, it's gonna come to me. She came in and talked to us about social media last year, and nope, it's Adams Lee. What is her first name? Rachel Adams Lee. Yeah, sorry. Haven't had enough coffee this morning. We had a long weekend. But she just, if you follow her on social, just probably in the last 90 days, she came out with a whole coaching and teaching. You can sign up for her classes. They're different formats. They're all Zoom. She has 3 little kids, so she's home all the time and isn't traveling. So she does these on Zoom. They're very affordable. You bet she gets referral business on those. Just building that audience and building the name for herself, she's generating referral business, because when you think about clients moving in and out of areas where you follow agents, you're always going to go. If you have somebody in Houston, you're probably going to send them to the Loken Group, because we've had them in here. They've talked. You see them at conferences. There's a lot of name recognition in Houston to the Loken Group. So if that's something that you like to do anyways, it may just be something you need to lean into a little bit more. But teaching and speaking opportunities are a great way to build your referral business, as well as just building an audience and generating more business, becoming that local expert in your own community. So I think that's one of the biggest opportunities on this list. Meals, I don't really know.
Want to go to lunch?
Yeah, you can buy my lunch anytime. I probably wouldn't spend a bunch of money taking people to lunch and hoping they send you business, but door-to-door canvassing, we talked about that a little bit as we talked about farming. Networking events, I think there's a lot of opportunity in networking events. I would just stay away from the ones you have to pay a lot for. Those BNI groups have become really, really expensive. And I think, like I said, they've become saturated, and I don't think that the leads you think you're going to get from those have turned out the way people thought. So I would just be careful not to spend a lot of money on networking events, but booths and kiosks. I always forget about this. We get invited every once in a while to career fairs. And usually when we do them, we do get 1 or 2 people getting licensed. If you're growing a team and you like training from brand new, career fairs, typically the people that show up to career fairs are people that are fairly serious about having a career, unless they're just obligated by some class to go. We've only done them a few times since I've been here, but every time we have, we've gotten somebody from them. So I think those are good if you want to grow a team. I don't know that I would stand at a booth or a kiosk if
At
you're
the
just
mall?
trying to generate business. Yeah.
Go spend the weekend at the mall.
Yeah. My sister did that in college. She worked for a chiropractor and she had to stand in a kiosk at Eastland Mall, and it was the worst summer she ever had. Talk about getting cussed at and like yelled at, Ryan. That was her kiosk at the mall job. Walk-ins, I probably wouldn't depend on this a whole lot because every time we get a walk-in here, they are dropping off an earnest check or picking up a key or need to talk to Adam about something. There's not a whole lot of walk-in traffic here, so I probably wouldn't ask for an uptime shift at the front desk. That's a little bit dated. And then the last is just texting correspondence. I know a lot of you are good at social media messaging and email and all of that. I think that's more in your follow-up game. If you are looking to add people to your database, you have to have a name to correspond with. So I think probably focusing on the top of this page is more important. And your follow-up, there's just a ton of different ways you can text, you can social media message, you can email. Figure out the way your database likes to communicate, because I don't necessarily want somebody to call me in the middle of my day to just, hey, you got a minute to talk about whatever? No, probably not. But if you text me, I'm probably more likely to schedule a time with you or to correspond a little bit by text message than just an abrupt interruption to the middle of my day.
Here's the deal with this list. There's really not a right or wrong to it. What's best for Jackie Miller might be different than what's best for Stacy Jewett, right? And they're going to choose whatever it is that they're most gifted at, whatever they feel most comfortable with, to go down that path. The risk is that we choose nothing. And again, over the last couple of years, we've had this opportunity to kind of choose nothing. And so our business is starting to follow this trajectory of that. And that's what we're trying to get to. How do we reverse this process so that as the market changes, our business stays ahead of where the market is?
Yep. The only thing I really want to hit on in this middle column of both is events. I know a lot of you do some kind of events, or whether it's an educational event, a client event, whatever that may be. We've talked about this a little bit, but we're going to talk about it all of fourth quarter. This is the time of year. If you do events, there are so many things you can do along with the holidays. Emily and Ryan, their team does presents for residents. So they do this huge drive to get presents for residents of nursing homes that don't get a lot of gifts. So it's a client event. They get everybody's contact information, but it's also a good way to give back to the community. So if you haven't gotten into events and it's something that you want to do, the next 4 months is such a good time to do an event because everybody wants to give back at the holidays. So if you just start out small, I would highly recommend doing some kind of a small event. It doesn't have to be super expensive. You can get sponsors and people to do them with you. But it's a good time to do something, even if it's just like your past clients from the last couple of years or something. And pop buys. I'm sure, I don't even think pop buys are on this list, but pop buys are a great way to just get face-to-face with somebody that maybe you haven't seen in a while, just dropping by. It's a little easier than door knocking. You're just dropping by something that you think they'll enjoy. It can be small, spend $5 or $8 on it. It's really just an excuse to say hi, for them to see your face. It's going to have your name on it somewhere. So like BJ said, whatever it is that we've talked about today that you go, oh, that wouldn't be so bad. Do one thing. Do one thing and spend an hour today. I know you're not all so busy that you don't have an hour today. Just sit down and look at how many people you have in your database and what your goals are. If you don't know how to get that far, schedule a time to meet with me and I'll help you get that far. But look at your goal and how many units you need to sell to hit your goal and how many people are in your database, and figure out if you have a gap in how many people you're communicating with or how much communication you're sending to the people that you already have. You will be light years ahead of fourth quarter if you can figure that out today. And then just do one thing on this list. It's like, I don't want to do that. It's
Yep.
the holiday weekend.
Yep. I'm glad you mentioned that. Where would I find this information, Megan, if I wanted more information?
This is actually the Business Planning Clinic packet. So you can find this in Connect. This is, I'll just walk you through this. This is your If you go to mykw.kw.com. Here, let's just do this from the beginning. Okay, every time I say go access your reports, all the things in mykw.kw.com, this is the page that I am talking about. You use your command credentials to log in. Amber, there's a seat in the front if you're having trouble reading. And all you need to click on up here is education, and this will take you, when we talk about Connect, this is what will take you into Connect. You see this right here? There are mine might look a little bit different because I have some leadership resources that may not show up on your page, but this is Connect. You can search in here for business planning clinic. And what it searches for first is all content. So you see this drop down, I left it at all content. You can change it to be just videos, audio, documents, whatever. But right in here in these first few documents, the ones that are uploaded by KW University, this is course content that KW has written. So if you see something uploaded by someone else, Katie Skinner, she is in Nassau County and did something for an administrative assistant that has to do with business planning clinic. So just make sure you're paying attention to like who wrote it. Sometimes you're looking for things from agents. Sometimes you're looking for things from Keller Williams University. If you select the participant one, that's the first one, that is the long one. If you select the pre-worksheet or the short worksheet version, this that I showed you here was the long version. So it's 139 pages. This is the whole business planning clinic
And that's,
participant
we'll
manual.
go through that whole thing. That's part of our entire class in October.
I just grabbed one or two pages of it.
This is also information that shows up in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, right? So if you haven't read that book or you don't have that book, all this information is in there. This is far more detailed and more exercise driven so that you can get a little more physical with it. But the bigger overview of this Millionaire Real Estate Agent.
And if you're looking for ideas like that, let's say you picked something out of that list, but you've never done it before. If you picked out FSBOs and you don't want to call Ryan and script practice with him because that's scary, you could go to Connect and just look up FSBO scripts, and there'll be agents that put their scripts that work on there. So if it's something, if you saw something on that list, but you want to get more information on that one really specific thing, you can go search that library for just that one specific thing. I promise you there's tons of resources out there on circle prospecting, on farming, FSBOs, expireds, anything you may be looking for, events. So Connect is a little bit overwhelming and a little bit messy, so you do have to really look, but there's a lot of good information in there. Any other thoughts? In October, yeah. Yeah, BJ is going to teach business planning clinic this year. We've had speakers come in the last couple of years, and the feedback we got is that for some reason you like hearing him talk for 8 hours.
We're gonna find out.
So. All right, wants and needs?
Come on, everybody show their listing that they got.
Everybody took the weekend off.
Yeah, everybody took, yes,
So-
including our customers apparently. Yes, Lucinda sold out, so she passes.
All right.
Hearing none.
All right, that means you got your work cut out for you today. I have one more thing. I guess I have a need. I need you guys to come ask Tracy or if I've had 2 questions, and I didn't prep Tracy for this, so I don't know if she's had any questions about this, but I've had 2 people ask me in the last week if they can do property management. The short answer to that is no. Legally, you cannot. If you have a client that has an investment property and they want you to manage it, it's not that simple. You have to have a separate operating account. You have to have a separate escrow account. You have to have a separate DBA. It has to be audited by Adam. It is not as easy as just, hey, my client wants me to collect rent and deal with all the maintenance items. No, you cannot legally do that. It does not fall under our E&O insurance like that. So you open yourself up to a lot of liability if you just start one-off managing properties. So I appreciate the two people that came to me in the last week and asked me. If you are doing that right now, know that you aren't doing it legally, and if a problem arises, it is not covered under our E&O. So we cannot be one-off property managers, unfortunately. The state has way more requirements than just than it being worth just doing it for one property. And I would challenge you that a property management fee of 8% on one property per month is probably really not worth it. So if it's something you're interested in doing on a larger scale, I would be happy to sit down and talk to you. If you are doing it, I had the conversation with one agent over the weekend. If you do want to help, if they have a maintenance issue and you want to connect them to an electrician or a plumber, or absolutely fine to help them connect to your resources. You just cannot be handling money. You can't be dealing with the tenants, anything like that. So just want to clear that up because I had a couple questions about that. Okay. That's all I got.
All right, on that note.
Have a great week.